So last Saturday I went to Leeds Regional, and as you can see, the main part of this, subtracting the other section, was mainly dominated by Magician Pendulum, which I knew was coming and thought was pretty boring. So I decided to enter with PK Fire, and lo and behold, I actually did quite well with it. So I'll go straight into the deck profile, and then after that I'll explain the games that I had. So the deck consists of a bit of a mishmash of everything, but somehow it works. One Alec, one Barbar, two BLS, one Calcab, one Seer, one Crane, two Effect Veiler, one Fairy Tale Snow, two Farfa, two Rhino, one Gandala, one Gamazeel, two Ghost Ogre, one Gref, a Congruous, two Libic, two Orbital Highlander, three Scarm, two Ancient Cloak, one Ragged Gloves, three Silent Boots, and a Tour Guide, one Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, one Monster Reborn, two Twin Twister, Imperial Order, three Fogblade, and a Skill Drain. So it's a bit of a weird deck, ran at 43, but I'm quite happy with it. Onto the side, two Lanzia, two DD Crow, two Vanity's Fiend, two Cosmic Cyclone, two Spell Shattering Arrow, two Anti-Spell Fragrance, and three Evenly Matched. And for extra, one Underclock Taker, one Decode Talker, two Break Sword, an F-Zero, Nightmare Shark, Leviair, Dark Rebellion, three Dante, one DDD Boulder King Darius, one DDD Stone King Darius, Beatrice, Virgil, and Dante. So I guess I'll go through the main deck first, explaining some of the things and why I ran this weird ratio of 43 cards. So I ran it at 43 for the fact that I didn't want to run 60 card variant of this because I've tried 60 card variants and they don't work that well, so I tried to get it as close to 40 as possible so that when I mill stuff off Dante, it's actually good things that I mill and I don't just keep hitting spells and traps. But unfortunately, most of the times when I did use Dante's effect, I either milled my boss monsters or my spells and traps, so my theory didn't work out as well as I hoped it to. But I thought that with this deck, it's pretty good. It's just the fact that BA and PK, well, that PK Fire have a hard matchup against anything with big monsters. If your opponent chips out a Masterpiece, then you're a little bit screwed. So that's why I ended up running the 4 boss monsters in the form of 2 BLS and 2 Orbital. But the rest of it's pretty standard, except for one change that I did from my initial list of... I didn't run Gandala in this. It was actually a 42 list, but I just take the one Gandala in under a friend's suggestion of... in case I draw the Slumber, I can use both of its effects, because the initial idea that I had behind it was I'd make Beatrice first turn, and then depending what I was going up against, if I was going up against like Masterpiece.deck or Paleo, I would use Beatrice's effect before Toad or Masterpiece gets out, and send Slumber to the grave, so then I have a free Kaiju for next turn ready. But he suggested for me to run the third Kaiju for the fact of if I do actually draw the Slumber, I can use both of its effects and it's still good. So, yeah. The only card that was really dead to me the entire tournament, I've got to say, was Monster Reborn, which it comes off the banned list, and to me it was absolute garbage because the 2 games that I drew it were against zombies, and I went second. Well, I lost the die roll, so I had to go second, and it didn't really help. Well, it did and it didn't, because I used Monster Reborn to bait out my opponent's Snow, so whatever I targeted with Reborn was effectively useless. And the other occasion that I had Monster Reborn, he just Solemn Judgmented it, so the 2 times I drew Monster Reborn just did not help. And the one other card that was a little bit dead, so I can't really make a comment on it, was Crane, because I never drew it throughout the entire tournament. I always milled it, so I can't really say if it's good or not. I still run it for late game, but it's just me personally. Side deck, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Evenly Matched hate, Zombie hate, Infernoid I actually ran this for the sake of thinking that I'd be going up against Infernoid or somehow going first against zombies and being able to pull off reasonably good stuff, but I never drew into my Vanity's Fiends, so it didn't help. The Cosmic Cyclones were just for a True Draco matchup. This was really, really helpful during my game 1 against Magician Pendulum. Well, it wasn't really Magician Pendulum, it was more like playing Performer Pal. Well, worse Performer Pal than initially anticipated, but it paid off quite well because I didn't really want to run the trap version of this that destroys spells and traps. I would rather run this for because it's more helpful, because if they activate the trap targeting too, I can just instantly get rid of it. His scales during my turn, or if you've got purple poison in scale, I can get rid of that before making a board and not have to fear the purple poison. So it paid off in the sense that my theory idea didn't come up, but in practice, whenever they made scales, I would just destroy the scales straight away, and it didn't really help because most of the time that they made proper scales for pendulum summoning and that, it was after they'd summoned Electromite and they didn't really have many cards left in hand, so when I used Spell Shattering Arrow on their back row, they just didn't have a lot left and lost to it. Anti-Spell Fragrances, I never drew into them, I just milled them. Evenly matched, surprisingly enough. I drew it 3 times in the entire tournament. Once was against a True Draco player, which I was already winning because he was on 200 life points, and I had a Beatrice on board with a material, so I could send Barbar at any time I wanted to. But instead, I decided to do the style points of he declares an attack on Beatrice with Masterpiece, and I use Beatrice effect to send Farfa to banish itself, and at the end of battle phase, use Evenly Matched. So then I have my Beatrice during end phase, and he only just has a Masterpiece, but it didn't really matter because regardless, I'd just be able to send. I could have just sent Barbar to the grave, but I just drew it off to a guy. I drew a tour guide and normal that and did the Barbar burn. And the other times that I drew it was against a Paleo matchup, which it got Solemn Judgmented straight away, and against my last matchup of Magician Pendulum, which again it got Solemn Judgmented straight away. So didn't really put in that much work considering I kind of had to beg a friend to loan me these. But for the extra deck, most of it's standard. The only 2 cards I really want to talk about in my extra deck was Stone King Darius. I was suggested to run this again by a friend from Huddersfield Locals because when we tested it out, we found out that this deck has a hard time getting over Borrelord Dragon. Even though I can Fog Blade it and then like Break Sword it off, it takes time to be able to do that. While if I can summon this, it's got a pretty cool effect of you can detach 1 material from this card, make this card unable to be destroyed by battle, destroy the opponent's monster at the end of damage conclusion, and if you do, inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent. So this is absolutely amazing against past Borrelord because, as I said, this deck finds it hard to get over big monsters, and especially non-targetable monsters, because Orbital, besides this, Orbital is the only way out to Borrelord, but even then that's kind of risky because I need a Snow Engrave to make it work properly, so Darius is really, really helpful. And the other God's Grace card was Underclock Taker, because if I couldn't do the Decode combo to get a Decode and Beatrice out, I'd go Underclock Taker and make Beatrice. But that only came up on 1 game. The other times when it came up was mainly because I'd have a big monster like Dante or Beatrice on board, Dante, Beatrice, or a Blacklist Soldier, or basically any of my big boss monsters, and I'd use Underclock Taker to just make my opponent's monsters as weak as I possibly could, and just run over them, which was really, really helpful. So all in all, I actually quite like this list and think that it's a solid list. There's only 1 or 2 cards that I would actually change in it. And that would be, I'd try and find room to put in a Borrelord, probably take out the Nightmare Shark to put a Borrelord in, but Borrelord's helpful, but it's still debatable with the Nightmare Shark because sometimes I like attacking directly and sometimes Borrelord comes up, but either way, for BA, it's one of those cards that comes up once every like 5-10 games. For the side deck, I wouldn't really change it because I believe that it's perfectly fine the way it is, and the main deck, I actually would want to run probably one more Effect Veiler because against Electromite, it was amazing. It was better than Ghost Ogre. Was Effect Veiler actually in most of my matches? Effect Veiler was a lot better than Ghost Ogre as a hand trap because against Paleo, when he summoned his Swap Frog, it meant that he couldn't send to make Totally Awesome. Against zombies, it's amazing because as soon as they try and search for their Brilliant Fusion, you can stop that straight away. Or when they've got their Invoker out, you negate Invoker, and there you go. They just can't do anything. And against Magician Pendulum, stopping Electromite or the Astrograph Sorcerer from getting other monsters out, it slows them down so much and it just makes it a lot better. So